Today on the Hearing Couch, we're going to be interviewing Emma Logan. Emma is the founder of the Hearing for All Foundation. She's also an accomplished curler, and she's an inspiration and a leader within the hard of hearing community. Today, she's going to be telling us a little bit about her trip to Yamasa and her journey to the Scotties. It's an inspirational story that you don't want to miss. Stay tuned. So, Emma, hey, again, welcome to the show. We met, maybe it was about 3 years ago, right? And you kind of went down this endeavor around philanthropy, right? And you started this Hearing for All Foundation. I'd love if you could, tell us a little bit about that and how you got started into that and what you're doing there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was actually studying abroad in Australia when I came up with the idea. I was speaking to my international business professor. I had told him about my inspiration to start some sort of initiative or give back in some way, use the knowledge that I had gained through my business degree and use it as a force for good. But I just needed some sort of problem or some sort of social situation that I wanted to address. And I was talking to him and he was like, well, Emma, there's so many people in the world who are struggling with their hearing loss and they don't have access to the technology and the support that you have had growing up. Why don't you do something to help them? And I was like, almost like, duh, that's exactly what I should do. But up until that point, I mean, I've grown up in Canada where the resources were accessible to me, and I was quite privileged to come from a family who could afford the technology and the support that I received growing up. So I never really thought about all of those around the world who were struggling with their hearing loss. So that's what began my research on the subject. And then a few weeks later, I was attending what we call the Gold Coast Startup Weekend. So those who had a business idea could show up to this event. There's about 60 people attending of all ages and walks of life, and you could pitch your idea forward. And I didn't have one at the time, but on Friday I was watching all of these other participants in the weekend pitch their idea. And I was sitting in the audience so frustrated that I couldn't think of my own, that I didn't have something to bring forward because I was so jealous with these other participants who were quite passionate about their own ideas. So I had the problem, but I just didn't have the solution. And then it was while I was sitting there in my seat that I realized I had 2 perfectly working hearing aids at home that I used to wear, but that I didn't anymore just due to upgrading to newer and better technology. And I thought, why is that? Why are they sitting on a shelf at home when someone else could be wearing them? And that was the beginning of the idea. So I am sitting there in my seat. I get all nervous now because then at the end of the scheduled pitches, they offered the opportunity for anyone who came up with an idea last minute. You could kind of get up and spontaneously do it. And this was a pitch that had to be done in 60 seconds. There was a buzzer, there were judges, there was an audience, and I had nothing prepared, but I felt compelled to do it. And so I stood up, I volunteered, and I got up and I pitched my idea. And to this day, I think it's still the best pitch I've ever done because it really came from the heart and there was no practice behind it. And I just told the audience, I said, I'm this girl from Canada who's visiting here for my studies. And I spoke to them a little bit about my own experience with hearing loss, but then more importantly, the global issue with those not accessing the proper hearing healthcare and technology. I pitched my idea, and then received really great feedback. And it was in that moment that I knew, regardless of the outcome of that weekend, it was something I wanted to pursue going forward. But then to my surprise, I actually won that pitch competition. So then it really validated the idea. I was like, okay, this is telling me something, and now I need to pursue it. So I kind of put it on pause in that moment while I was still in Australia. I wanted to wait till I came home to Canada to pursue the idea further. So when I went back to school, I went to school at St. FX University, and they had this program called the Wallace Family Internship for a handful of students to pursue their own innovative idea in some way. So I pitched my idea again, this time with a little bit more work and a model behind it and a plan, and then was given this opportunity to work on it for 12 weeks of the summer with the business department behind me and supporting the idea. I had a faculty mentor. It was a really great program, and that's what then led me to you guys.
That's how we found you.
Fun, yeah. And I found the Gifted Hearing Foundation. So.
Yeah. And again, that's sort of when, we got to meet you, and, you came to us. I remember you're looking to go and, hey, how do I go and, where would I donate hearing aids and things like that? And, we were so excited to meet you because I was at this, we had been going to Yamasa in the Dominican Republic for about 2 years. We've been 2 or 3 times at that point in time. And, one of the biggest struggles that we've always had is to go and collect hearing aids, right? We, down in Yamasa, when we go every year, there's hundreds of people waiting, to get a hearing aid. And, we know because, they have higher rates of infection, and music there is loud and everything. It's just a loud world, right? And, just lack of resources, that there's much more hearing loss there, right? So again, when we met you, we were like, awesome. Hey, Emma, how are you going to help us get some hearing aids? So how did you help us get some hearing aids? What things did you do?
So, I mean, having a hearing loss myself, I have quite the network of those who are deaf and hard of hearing. I grew up kind of disconnected from the deaf and hard of hearing community. As I went to a mainstream school, I have a hearing aid and a cochlear implant, and I mean, it's evident through this call that I communicate verbally, and I guess that there was nothing drawing me to the deaf and hard of hearing community. I just grew up in a mainstream school, and I played sports, but it was in high school that I felt inspired to meet others like myself, because I started to become more self-aware of the fact that there is something that separates me from my friends, and that was kind of a pivotal moment for me in further self-discovery and building friendship with those who can relate to what it's like to have a hearing loss, and those are still strong friendships that I have today. So I started to become more involved with that community. So a lot of the hearing aid collection is those that I know who through word of mouth, and then St. FX was a huge voice for me, pushing out the initiative to our alumni network, which is quite strong. And then, I had this idea too, where a lot of people who are wearing hearing aids are of the older population, and what happens when someone passes away but had a brand new set of hearing aids that they maybe only got a couple of years out of, maybe that then get put away and forgotten about. So a lot of people who were holding on to those hearing aids had heard about the initiative, including a few funeral homes and those that just had hearing aids left behind from their loved ones. So there is a multitude of streams, I'd say, and it amazed me how hearing aids popped up in many different areas. And then too, actually, there were 2 news segments that were on CTV News. Was one of them, for example, and so people just started emailing me and calling me. The word got out fast, so it was really cool to support that.
We were super excited to have you as a partner, to have Hearing for All as a partner, and to have your donated hearing aids. I think it was last year that Emma got to go down to Yamasa with us. Tell me about how Yamasa was for you.
I mean, it's hard to express such an experience through words and an interview like this, but I mean, certainly the first thing I think about when I think of Yamasa is just how eye-opening and life-changing that experience was. It was my first time visiting and fully immersing myself in a low-income country and living with a family there, understanding their way of life and their environment. And you talked about how loud it is, and I experienced firsthand just what that was like. Um, but the experience was incredible. The work itself, not enough preparation. I know we had so many conversations about what that would look like, and what the experience would be like, and how exhausting it would be, and emotionally it's draining too. But then it just is equally rewarding. So I mean, we had lots of conversations about that before heading down, but nothing could have prepared me quite for what the experience actually was. But yeah, so all day working in that office, and welcoming people who are coming in who are coming in for hearing tests or have their hearing aids fitted or fixed up if they received one in the past, and not speaking the same language. I certainly don't speak Spanish. I did enough years of speech therapy to learn English, so but that was a lot of fun. The challenge that came with that, and the meeting these people and knowing that we were there to help them, and really feeling the reward of paying back all that support that I'm usually the receiver of. So I got to give my first hearing test while we were there, which was super cool, and then and to see the faces of those leaving the clinic now with a brand new set of hearing aids. It was awesome.
How has it changed your approach or your view on the world now?
At the end of the call, we all reflected on the experience, and everybody, we were on the bus. I can't remember where we were headed to, but it was the end of the week, and everybody kind of said a few words about what their experience had been like that week. And I got quite emotional. I just couldn't believe what I had just seen. I mean, the amount of hard work and passion that was in everybody that was there, and then the reward of helping. I think it was 147 people ended up getting their hearing restored. So it's amazing the work that happened. But I guess on a personal level, a huge eye opener for me. I mean, it was only a couple years ago that I started researching how many people in the world are struggling with their hearing loss, and don't have access to the same resources that I've had growing up. And I just had this moment of, wow, I really am so lucky to be from where I am, and to have a family who not only could afford the opportunities that I was given, but they truly were champions of mine, my parents, growing up, and they wanted everything for me. So yeah, I gained a whole new perspective on that support I had received, which was truly special.
It absolutely is, because I also remember that part of our trip, we went down to the deaf school in Santo Domingo. And I remember the president of the school looked at you and was in complete awe and shock, because he's like, wow, you lived with hearing life your whole life, yet it's never stopped you from doing anything that you've wanted to do. You can speak and communicate like anyone else, right? And you have all this, the world is your oyster. The world's your oyster, right? And, the truth is that a lot of the people there, it's not the case, right? With hearing loss, they don't have those opportunities. So it is really amazing, some of the opportunities we have in the first world nations to be able to overcome some of these challenges, right? You're an example of what people can expect, that there is no limitations, right? And that, people or families of, people with hearing loss, they don't need to feel like they've been beaten by this villain that is hearing loss, right? That you can overcome it, you can succeed. So I guess, kind of off of that, you were born with hearing loss, right?
Yep,
Tell me. Oh, actually, I guess you're right. You weren't born with hearing loss. So I guess if you can tell me, yeah, what is your hearing loss? How did the hearing loss affect you growing up? Tell me about that.
So I did lose my hearing when I was 13 months old due to meningitis, and because of the severity of the disease, I was fortunate to not lose my life, but I did lose almost all of my hearing. I have a severe to profound hearing loss in both ears, so I was given a set of hearing aids for both ears to start, and then it was when I was 3 years old that my family made the decision to have me implanted with a cochlear implant, and that was that was huge for me. I started speech therapy, or I guess I was already doing speech therapy then, but I completed 9 years of it. Um, I went to a mainstream school, and growing up, quite honestly, with the support that I had from my family and my audiologist and my speech therapist, my teachers, like everybody around me, I always say it took a village to raise
Mm.
me and shape me into who I am today. So growing up, I never really thought, like, everything was so normal to me. It was my normal, I
Yeah.
guess. And it was as I got older and in more recent years that I become more self-aware of being an individual with hearing loss, what that means for me in society, what challenges I do face, that I've always faced but have become more familiar with lately, and then how I naturally have overcome it, but then finding new strategies to overcome it as well. So it's because it does affect every area of my life, where communication is such a huge piece of our day to day and our relationships. I really value my relationships with others. I love to hang out with my friends and to be around other people, but communication is a huge piece of that. And it all starts with being able to hear.
Tell me about the Scotties. This year, I know that as long as I've known you, curling has been a big part of your life, and you've always been an avid curler, constantly in competitions, and I'm always amazed at how you can balance schoolwork, competitions, running a foundation, all together, all at the same time. But you seem to be able to do it, and again, this year you made it to the Scotties. Tell me about that experience. Tell me about that.
Wow. Well, so I don't know if you know this, but I got into curling because my aunt is a two-time world champion. So I grew up watching her play at the highest level, and so I was always inspired by her success, and so that's what got me into the sport. And then, of course, my goal quickly became to reach the level of curling that I watched her play at as I grew up. And then a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to join her team. So we've been teammates for the past couple of years. And so making it to the Scotties this year was not only my first time at the national stage for women's curling, but I got to do it with my aunt, who is my biggest inspiration in the sport. And I can't express how special that was to me. It was truly, truly a dream come true. So that to start was an amazing experience for us, and one that I'll cherish for forever. And then on top of that, this season, I mean, was the most challenging season I've had since I started curling 12 years ago, or so. And it's because I was playing with a team that they were all had much more experience than me. I was learning a lot this season, but because they were such experienced players and phenomenal athletes, I was playing at a level beyond what I had experienced before, and I realized how much of my hearing loss became a challenge for me, a greater challenge. And we struggled a lot with team communication. So what you've seen is the rewarding experience of going to the Scotties, which was incredible. And behind that was months of struggle with the team, for team communication specifically, because being a new team, so I have been playing with my aunt for a couple of years, but we had a new team formation this year. So learning each other as teammates, how we play together, and then how we communicate was so important. And at the beginning, I realized that there was a lot of conversation happening on the ice that I just straight up couldn't hear. I mean, I can't lip read my teammates all the time. We're yelling. If you know the sport of curling, I mean, you're yelling from one end of the ice to the other, and it's just everything in curling. The two terms that are yelled and the most would be like hard or yes and whoa. And those two terms, when somebody gets to a certain pitch when they're yelling, they just sound the same to me. So, but they're two very, very different things. So my aunt had a couple of extra hand signals. Curling has a lot of hand signals to begin with, but she kind of incorporated a few extra ones. And then she wore a mitt that had a piece of red or pink tape on one side and green on the other, so that when she was communicating for me to either sweep or not sweep, she could also indicate with the color, so that I could do a quick glance up, and that would be how it was communicated to me, which helped. But we noticed that there was still a huge gap in the full team communication. So then we incorporated technology, which was a unique twist to the sport, and the first time it's been done, especially in this setting where I have a little microphone that connects to my cochlear implant by Bluetooth. So we first put it on my aunt as a skip at the other end, but with the distance, it would cut in and out, and it was, sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't, and even then, it was still not great because so many other people in the arena, like we're one game out of like 4 or 5 or 6 that are happening at the same time. So then it was just before Christmas time that so there's always 2 sweepers sweeping each dome, and the alternate sweeper that was, I guess, my partner, she looked at me and she said, are you able to hear what I'm saying when we're traveling down the ice? And I wasn't sure. It's like, I think so, but you don't know what you don't hear. So we then did a practice shot where she said, I'm just going to say random things to you, and then I want you to repeat back to me what I said. And then at the end of the shot, I looked at her with that I have no idea anything that you said to me that whole shot. So that was a huge eye-opening moment for the whole team. They're like, no wonder we can't communicate as a team. Like, Emma is physically not in this conversation that's happening most of the time. And so then we took the microphone off of my aunt and we put it on my partner, and she and it just opened up a whole new conversation. I remember I felt so emotional thinking I had no idea I was missing this much in the game. And as soon as we did that, it was like a whole new sport to me. I was like, suddenly, because before that, they always commented on, I would talk less, I seemed less confident, I wasn't as engaged in the sport, and I felt frustrated by that because I knew I wanted to be, and I wanted to have something to say, but I just simply didn't, because if I wasn't receiving information, it's hard to have that confidence when you're excluded, and not by any intention, but just naturally I was facing that barrier. So anyway, finally it was like our aha moment, and we just started to mesh so much better from there. Our team dynamic grew even stronger. We started playing so much better. I felt so much better, and it was just in time to then have our best performance at the provincial championship, and then represent Nova Scotia at the nationals. So, being on the national stage, having it be a dream come true with my aunt, and then it was extra rewarding knowing all of the work and the struggle that had been leading up to that.
It's amazing that, even with someone like yourself who's lived with hearing loss as long as you have, right, that you still come to these aha moments and these realizations, right before the world stage.
I know, it's amazing. And I seriously learn new things about my hearing loss and myself all the time. And a huge thing for me this season too was, because it's been so long that I've lived with hearing loss, and that's my normal, it's sometimes hard to step out of my shoes and see what I am missing out on, because I don't know what I can't hear necessarily. There's things I now know I can't hear, but I expect it. But I'm discovering new things all the time. And my real champion this season in helping me discover these new things about myself was my coach. She she was always challenging me and asking me. She's like, "Are you hearing this? Does this work for you? Let's try something new." And sometimes I felt, I don't know what the word is, but there were times in the season I felt defeated. I felt I had a disability that was holding me back, and we were trying really hard to overcome it, but we just weren't seeing the success that we wanted. And that was really tough. It was the sport was way more mentally exhausting for me this season than it ever was physically. And but my coach was my champion, and that she just wanted so hard to make things work and help me identify what areas I needed help with. And I remember halfway through the season when I was feeling at my lowest point and thinking that maybe I'm just not fit to compete at this level. Maybe, I thought at the time we had done everything we could, and I thought I was at a point where I just needed to accept the fact that I have a hearing loss, and and maybe this level of curling it just isn't fit for that. And I remember expressing this to my coach, and I was quite upset about it, knowing that I still have my goals to reach. And she just looked at me. She's like, "Emma, this is not a hearing problem. This is a team communication problem." So she said, "You're struggling with the mainstream ways that teams communicate, but we're going to find a way that works for you. And in the end, this whole team is going to have better communication for it." So I'll always remember those words from her, because they stuck with me. And I wasn't sure I believed her at the time, but then once it worked for us, then I looked back and I realized she was right.
Who's your coach?
Carol McLean.
She deserves an award.
She does. She deserves the world. I've told her, I'm like, I don't know how I could possibly thank her enough.
And your aunt, she's an amazing person as well too. What's her name?
My aunt, Marianne Arsenault.
What would you tell anyone that's dealing with hearing loss or struggling with or contemplating, trying to get it figured out or resolved?
Yeah, just find the right people, and put in the extra work. Don't be afraid to communicate what you need, and look for the resources, but not to let anything hold you back, because the reward is so much sweeter once knowing all the work that goes behind it.
Those are true words. Thank you so much, Emma. And I think just even for myself, I'm so glad to have found you, and to have met you. And I think you've been an inspiration to me as well too, right? And I think an inspiration to many people that do struggle with hearing loss. So thank you for everything you're doing. I can't wait to see the great things that you're going to do in this world and the influence that you're going to have on the hearing community. So don't stop what you're doing.
This has been a lot of fun, John.